American families are spending 32% more on groceries than they were 5 years ago. Look at the receipt at the bottom of the bag. You already know it's true. They told us it was supply chains, then the war, then bird flu, then a tough global environment. Economists have since announced the supply chains are fixed. Nobody told the receipt. Somewhere between the fourth explanation and the seventh, a thought starts to form. What if it wasn't any of that? What if that number at the bottom is a series of decisions made by named companies enforced on purpose? That's what this video is about. 5 schemes keeping grocery prices high, backed by court filings, federal investigations, and the company's own marketing. PepsiCo and Walmart, Instacart, the country's biggest egg producer, and the chains that run almost every loyalty card in America. Some are illegal, some are legal, all of them are deliberate. And everyone is running right now at the store you'll shop at this weekend. Stay until the end. After the 5 schemes, 5 counter moves, sourced, specific, and the kind that people running these schemes would rather you didn't know. The first scheme starts with a document PepsiCo spent months trying to keep buried. 1. The Walmart-Pepsi price floor. There's a document PepsiCo spent months trying to keep buried. A federal complaint filed January 2025, accusing Pepsi of helping one of the country's biggest retailers run a secret pricing scheme. The retailer's name was blacked out. Pepsi's lawyers fought to keep it that way. A federal judge ordered the documents unsealed on December 12, 2025. The retailer everyone was pretending not to name? Walmart. And when you read what was under the black boxes, it stops being about 2 companies. It starts being about a system. Pepsi had built a surveillance operation, not against shoplifters, against every grocer selling Pepsi products who wasn't Walmart. The system tracked 2 things. First, leakage. Pepsi's internal term for a customer who bought their 12-pack somewhere other than Walmart, meaning you. You grabbed a 12-pack at the store down the road. Pepsi had a word for that. They called it a leak, and they had a plan to plug it. Second, price gaps. The spread between Walmart's Pepsi price and everybody else's. The goal wasn't to lower Walmart's price. It was to keep that gap open by forcing every other store to raise theirs. Food Lion is a regional chain with nearly 1,000 stores across the Southeast. In Pepsi's internal documents, Food Lion was the worst offender for selling Pepsi cheaper than Walmart did. Pepsi's response: cut Food Lion's promotional money, raise their wholesale costs. Food Lion raised its prices. Walmart's stayed. This isn't an accident of scale. Walmart does buy in volume nobody else can touch. And on some items, real efficiency reaches the shelf. But volume isn't what this is. Ask R.F. Booch, 4th-generation grocer in South Dakota. He pays $8.52 wholesale for a 12-pack of Pepsi. A Dollar General near one of his stores sells that same 12-pack for $5. $8.52? $5. Do the math on that. Booch isn't paying more because he's running his business badly. He's paying more because Pepsi decided he should. Jordan White, a 3rd-generation grocer in Kansas, puts it plainer. They're always advertising prices cheaper than we're buying it for. If you shop at Walmart, you might be thinking, okay, but I'm getting the lower price, so what's the problem? Fair question. The floor doesn't protect you. It removes the competitors who would have undercut Walmart. Once they're gone, the floor becomes the ceiling. Walmart already captures half or more of every grocery dollar in 203 U.S. markets. The lowest price is whatever Walmart decides to charge. You pay for the system even if you shop at Walmart. Ask anyone on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Nearest Walmart is 55 miles away. Most folks don't own a car. A hired ride runs $25 one way. Before a single item hits the cart, there's a toll. Paid in cash, at the door, by the people who can least afford it. There's a law that's supposed to stop this. The Robinson-Patman Act, 1936, still on the books, makes every piece of what Pepsi and Walmart were doing illegal. The FTC finally used it. Then federal regulators voluntarily dismissed the case on May 22, 2025, one day before Pepsi had to defend the redactions in court. Convenient timing. The new FTC chair called it a politically motivated travesty. Pepsi's statement: this complaint had no merit. Case closed. Walmart did not issue a statement. They didn't call it a monopoly, they called it a price gap. And they had a plan to make sure that gap never closed. Pepsi worked the supply side. Scheme 2 works a different angle. The person in line behind you at checkout just paid 80 cents less for the same carton of eggs. He doesn't know why. Neither do you. 2. The algorithm priced you personally. You know the shelf price. Big black number, clear as daylight. Same for everyone who walks down the aisle, or so you think. Open the Instacart app for that same store from your living room, and the number changes. Open it again on your daughter's phone, 5 feet away on the couch, and it changes again. Same dairy case. Same second on the clock. Different price on every screen. Those price jumps aren't glitches. They're the whole point of the system. In December 2025, Consumer Reports, Groundwork Collaborative, and the investigative outlet More Perfect Union released a study. 437 shoppers, 4 cities, same app, same stores, same baskets. They're finding nearly 3 out of 4 items showed up at different prices for different customers, and on some products the spread reached 23%. In one of the tests, volunteers shopping a Safeway in Washington, D.C., looked at a dozen Lucerne eggs. Same carton, same refrigerator shelf, and the app showed that carton at 5 different prices at the same moment. $3.99, $4.28, $4.59, $4.69, $4.79. 39 people, 1 carton of eggs, 5 prices, 0 consent. Instacart wrote the playbook on their own website. In their pitch to grocery clients, they described their pricing engine, software called Eversight, which Instacart bought in 2022, as a tool that can rapidly test and analyze millions of price permutations. A few lines down, a single sentence. End shoppers are not aware that they're in an experiment. Said it out loud. In their own marketing copy, the industry calls what the algorithm is doing willingness to pay, the term for how much money they think they can take from you before you walk away.
The different prices that Instacart was charging some customers.
Now, we now know the system was using artificial intelligence.
Instacart is pulling the plug on AI, setting different prices for different customers. Earlier this month, Consumer Reports and progressive think tank Groundwork Collaborative found that Instacart's algorithmic pricing charged various prices for the same item from the same store.
Lindsay Owens, who runs Groundwork Collaborative, did the math on a real household. For a family of 4 shopping a normal week's list, the price variation adds up to roughly $1,200 a year, $1,200, a month of food, paid to an algorithm running on a server in a warehouse you've never heard of. Her words, they have turned the simple act of buying groceries into a high-tech game of pricing roulette. Federal regulators were looking at this. The FTC had opened a multi-year surveillance pricing study, documenting how retailers were using your mouse movements, location, purchase history, even income signals to set individual prices on the same item. Days later, under new leadership, the agency closed public comment on its own work. Same building, same month, published the evidence, silenced the response. After the investigation went public in December 2025, Instacart announced it was ending the specific program that let retailers run those experiments. One program shut down. Nothing in federal law stops any other retailer from running the same play under a different name. Next time the checkout screen shows you a number, understand what you're looking at. It isn't the price of the groceries. It's what the algorithm decided you'd pay. Using data you didn't know you were selling. They hid a number in your phone. They hid something even louder in the price of eggs. 3. The egg cartel. You paid $6 for a dozen eggs. Maybe 7. Maybe 9 if you were in Little Rock in March. The industry had an explanation ready. Bird flu. Supply went down. Prices went up. Economics 101. Except there's a problem with that story. In March 2025, the Department of Justice announced it was investigating the egg industry for price fixing. And within weeks, egg prices started falling. Not when the chickens came back, not when farms recovered. The weak investigators showed up and started asking questions. Funny thing about that, meet the company at the center of the investigation, Cal-Maine Foods, the biggest egg producer in America. 1 out of every 5 eggs in the country comes from them. In all of 2021, Cal-Maine made about $147 million in profit for the entire year. In 3 months of 2025, while you were paying $6 for a carton, they made $508 million. In 90 days, more than 3 times their entire annual profit from 4 years earlier. On the earnings call announcing those numbers, the CEO said the company had done an outstanding job maximizing production through a period of high demand. The DOJ had just served them with a federal investigation, and the word he used was outstanding. How does one company move the country's egg prices? There's a company called Urner Barry. Every single day, Urner Barry publishes the official wholesale egg price. And where does Urner Barry get that number? From the egg producers themselves. The biggest producers, the ones now under investigation, tell Urner Barry what they're charging. Urner Barry publishes it. Most grocery stores in America set your retail price off that benchmark. They built the scoreboard, then they decided what numbers to put on it. And you paid what the scoreboard said. To be fair, this isn't Cal-Maine's first time at this dance. In 2023, a federal jury already found them liable in a case brought by Kraft, Kellogg, General Mills, and Nestle of all people. Cal-Maine paid $53 million in damages, kept operating, kept running the scoreboard, and here we are. To be even more fair, not every egg producer gamed this. Greg Herbruck of Herbruck's Poultry Ranch lost 6.5 million chickens to the bird flu. His words, "The mental toll of dealing with that many dead chickens, you can't imagine. I didn't sleep. Our team didn't sleep." Herbruck's isn't named in the lawsuit. The grief was real. The bird flu was real. The question the DOJ is asking is whether the biggest producers use that shock as cover to push prices far beyond their costs. And then there's the company that turned all of it into $500 million in a single quarter. In Gloucester, Massachusetts, while Cal-Maine was posting those profits, grocery stores put up handwritten signs above the egg case, felt tip marker on printer paper, taped to the cooler glass. 2 cartons per customer, not because eggs were scarce, because the company at the top was printing money and the store was trying to keep anything on the shelf. 2 cartons per customer, $500 million in profit, same quarter. 3 schemes, same pattern, which is not a coincidence. The dots connect. 3 schemes. A supplier gaming a retailer, a platform experimenting on customers, an industry posting records while blaming a disease. These aren't 3 companies behaving badly. This is what happens when the referees leave the field. Federal enforcement of the Robinson-Patman Act effectively stopped in the 1980s, not repealed, abandoned. A 40-year gap. Watch what happens in the vacuum. The same FTC that filed the Pepsi complaint dismissed it 4 months later. The same FTC that published proof of surveillance pricing closed public comment days later. The DOJ opened the egg case and is being defunded by the people who killed the Pepsi one. One regulatory vacuum, 40 years in the making, filled by the companies with the most to gain. Scheme 4 isn't about what they charge you. It's about making sure you have nowhere else to go. 4. The empty building trap. Think of the grocery store your mother shopped at when you were a kid. Then, think about the one you drove past last week, the one that's now a vape shop, a church, or an empty parking lot with weeds coming through the asphalt. 20 years ago, the average American neighborhood had 4 or 5 competing grocers inside a 10-minute drive. Today, 1, maybe 2. Probably owned by the same 4 giants who control 2/3 of every grocery dollar in this country. That didn't happen by accident. It was an acquisition strategy, approved by investors, executed one closure at a time. The pitch was always that scale lowers prices. And for a while, on some items, it did. Then the consolidation stopped stopping. There's a lawyer's term you were never meant to hear. Restrictive covenant. Plain English. A deed restriction. When a big chain closes a store, they file a legal clause with the county, and for the next 25, 30, sometimes 50 years, no grocery store is allowed to open there, ever. Half a century, on a building that already exists. Refrigerators and parking and loading docks already installed. Legally forbidden to sell a tomato. A law professor told the business journal Marketplace these covenants are routine and standard in the industry. Routine. That's their word, not ours. Bellingham, Washington. Low-income Birchwood neighborhood. Albertsons closes its store after the 2015 Safeway merger, and on the way out, files a covenant blocking any grocer from replacing it until the year 2038. 2 decades. On a food desert they created. Denison, Texas. Population 25,000. Had 2 grocers for decades, a Kroger and an Albertsons. Kroger closed in 2019. An Albertsons subsidiary quietly bought the property and filed a 25-year covenant. Aaron Thomas, a city councilman who uncovered it, is suing. His word for it? Scorched earth. Then there's Stop and Shop in Massachusetts. In 2006, they paid a local developer $42,500 a month, every month, to simply not develop a piece of land a quarter mile away. Walmart wanted that land. Stop and Shop paid over $500,000 a year to keep a parking lot empty. Walmart isn't innocent either. By 2010, the company had 250 empty stores sitting across America, most held under their own deed restrictions. A Long Beach dark store has been locked up and quietly paid for since 2016. A former Kroger store manager told the Institute for Local Self-Reliance what it looked like from the inside. "We pulled everything the day the doors closed. A year later, I found out about the covenant. Nobody there was ever going to get a grocer again." October 2025. Fred Meyer in Seattle's Lake City neighborhood went dark. Mayor Bruce Harrell confirmed at least 2 Seattle deed restrictions, blocking replacement grocers for up to 50 years. The building is still there. The refrigerated cases are still bolted to the floor. The empty parking lot fills with the smell of wet asphalt every time it rains, which in Seattle is most days. Jennifer Reed, who runs the local food bank, says visits are at the highest levels she's ever seen. Why close a working store and then sabotage the replacement? Follow the money. The same week Kroger's Seattle restrictions hit the news, the interim CEO told investors, "Unfortunately today, not all of our stores are delivering the sustainable results we need." Then Kroger authorized $7.5 billion in stock buybacks. A buyback is when a company takes a mountain of its own cash and uses it to buy up its own shares. The share price jumps. Executives paid in stock wake up richer. Big investors wake up richer. Not one store gets saved. Not one cashier gets a raise. Not one shelf gets restocked. $7.5 billion. Enough to cover losses at dozens of struggling stores for decades. Instead, that money went into the stock price. Close a store, you lose a grocer. File a covenant, you lose the block. For 50 years, less competition means you pay higher prices. They got you again. A handful of cities and states have started fighting back. Chicago passed an ordinance limiting these covenants. California has a bill moving through the legislature. Washington, D.C. put its own limits in place. Most of the country, they're still perfectly legal. Changing that starts with your city council and your state reps. Scheme 5 is waiting for you at the register. And it starts with a question you've been answering without thinking for 20 years. If you made it this far and you didn't know any of this, there's more. Subscribe. We publish every day. It costs you nothing, and it costs them something. 5. The loyalty program price wall. When was the last time you got the sale price at your grocery store without a loyalty card? You can't remember. Neither can anyone else. The answer is never. Not in the last 20 years. 96% of Kroger transactions are tied to a loyalty card. Albertsons, which owns Safeway, Jewel Osco, Acme, Vons, and a dozen other banners, just reported 48.7 million members in its 4U program. Between those two corporations, nearly every grocery receipt in America now carries a profile. It's not a discount program. It's a data collection operation with a produce aisle attached. On some items, the card gets you a real sale. On many others, the bigger number on the tag is just there to make you feel like scanning the card was an achievement. Either way, the "you saved $14" at the bottom of your receipt isn't a gift from the store. It's a trade. The discount for your name, your address, your shopping history, and your data. These chains really do run at scale that can drive real savings on some items? Fine. Here's what the scale actually buys them. Ask Hazem Salem. Salem lives in Oregon, one of the states where the law lets you request the profile a company has built on you. He asked Kroger for his. Kroger thought Salem was a woman. Kroger thought he was a high school graduate. He has a college degree. Kroger estimated his income at $66,000. He makes 6 figures. And Kroger had shared that wrong profile with more than 50 companies, tobacco companies, data brokers, a health tech firm serving insurers. Salem's words? "It's creepy how much they assume to know about me, and it's basically all wrong. The profile is garbage. They sold it anyway. 50 buyers are now making decisions about him. What ads he sees, what coupons he qualifies for, what insurance rate a health tech firm suggests, off a file that thinks he's a woman making $66,000. Kroger's data subsidiary is called 84.51, named after the longitude of Kroger's Cincinnati headquarters. It sells insights to more than 1,400 companies, including General Mills, Unilever, Coca-Cola, and Kraft Heinz. Kroger's own 2025 annual report lays it out. Alternative profit businesses like data, advertising, and media delivered $1.5 billion in operating profit last year. roughly 30% of Kroger's total operating income. They're not primarily a grocery store. They're a data company that sells groceries on the side. Kroger doesn't run that playbook alone. Safeway's For You program promises personalized sale prices, unadvertised specials that show up only on your account. A Denver TV investigation by 9 News last year pulled Safeway's own privacy policy apart and found the company collects precise geolocation, tracks app browsing, and this is the one that stops you, derives demographic data through in-store cameras, pointed at you at the produce section while you pick apples. One more, 2004. A firefighter in Everett, Washington named Philip Scott Lyons was arrested on arson charges because Safeway had handed his purchase history to police, showing he'd bought a fire starter a month earlier. He was innocent. Someone else confessed. The charges dropped. The precedent did not. Think about the moment it happens. Fluorescent lights. Beep of the scanner. The cashier looks up and says the 7 words, "Do you have your rewards card?" Say no, you pay the penalty price. Say yes, and you've already paid. The file updates before you finish unloading your bags. John Marshall of the Grocery Workers Union, UFCW 3000, said the quiet part out loud. The bigger concern is the possibility that Kroger could use accurate data to target discounts at higher-income shoppers while leaving lower-income consumers to pay more. The loyalty program isn't built to give the best deals to the people who need them most. It's built to give them to the people most likely to spend more anyway. The working family with 3 kids gets tagged low value and the system moves on. You don't have to throw the card away. The discounts on your big weekly shop are real. The point is to stop letting every gallon of milk feed a profile that's being sold to 50 other companies. This scheme is also the only one of the 5 that isn't under federal investigation. No DOJ action. No courtroom date. It's legal, which is part of why it's the most insidious. It runs every day, at the register, with your consent. Nobody is coming to stop it, except you. 5 ways to shop back. Prosecution rests. Your turn. 5 moves. All sourced. All cost these companies real money. All of them work this Saturday morning. First move. Stop looking at the big price. Look at the little one. Every shelf tag has 2 numbers. The big bold one is what they want you staring at. The little one tucked in the corner is the unit price. Per ounce, per pound, per 100 sheets. That tiny number is where the truth lives. The Government Accountability Office just documented that shrinkflation, the polite industry word for shrinking the package while keeping the price the same, has pushed per-unit coffee prices up 32%. Capital One puts the hidden cost at $741 a year for a family of 4. The big number is the distraction. The little number is the verdict. Second move, skip the loyalty card on small trips. Just be harder to read. On quick runs, a gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, pay cash, skip the phone number, don't scan the card. It creates what analysts call gaps in your profile. Enough gaps and the algorithm can't price you as precisely. Enough gaps and there's less of you to sell to tobacco companies and data brokers. You still get the loyalty price on the big weekly shop. You just stop filing a report on yourself every time you run in for 2 things. Third move, and this is the sharpest blade in the drawer, request your file and order them to delete it. 20 states now give you the legal right to demand every piece of data a grocery chain has on you. Access it, correct it, force them to delete it, stop the sale. Consumer Reports built a free app called Permission Slip that does it automatically. 14,000 people have filed more than 200,000 requests through it. Companies have 45 days to respond by law. Most shoppers don't know the right exists. It does. Use it. Fourth move, buy the store brand. It's often the name brand in a different box. Market researcher First Insight ran a blind taste test. Store brand and name brand side by side. 72% couldn't tell them apart. They're frequently made by the same manufacturer, on the same line, to the same specification. The name brand pays for the marketing budget, the TV ads, the eye-level shelf placement. The store brand doesn't. You pay the difference for the jingle. Fifth move, shop your local independent grocer at least once a month. Not out of nostalgia, out of self-interest. Independents' share of the U.S. market collapsed from 53% to 22% between 1982 and today. Every time an independent closes, a competitor capable of pushing prices down disappears. Shopping the local grocer once a month isn't charity. It's price insurance for the day the big chain decides it doesn't have to compete anymore. 5 moves. unit prices, data gaps, delete requests, store brands, local grocers. None of them wait on a regulator. One more, if you've got the energy, the real change comes from state law. New York, Colorado, and California are moving bills right now to ban surveillance pricing and restrictive covenants. A 2-minute email to your state rep scares them more than any petition. 5 schemes, 5 named companies, 5 moves that take real money back. Nobody asked you about a price floor on your Pepsi. Nobody told you an algorithm was experimenting on your eggs. And nobody mentioned the loyalty card was selling you to 50 companies you've never heard of. All of that happened to you, and you were never told. Now you have been. These companies are counting on one thing that you won't notice. They don't fear regulators. The regulators walked away. They fear the informed consumer who changes one habit on Saturday morning. You're that consumer now. YouTube is showing you another video right now, right beside this one or loading up next. Click it. We publish every day, and what's coming next will make you angry in a whole new way. Until then, read the small number, skip the card sometimes, request your file, buy the store brand, shop the grocer who's still fighting to stay open. Shop back. 5 schemes, 5 moves, 1 receipt that doesn't have to keep looking like this forever.